Ballarat, a city built on gold. First inhabited by the Wurundjeri people, and for better or worse, this precious metal has defined the legacy of what stands today as Australia's third largest inland city. And with that success, heritage buildings stand proud as they did over a century ago. Prime subjects just waiting to be captured.
It's been 29 years since I've been here, and I always remember the city for its street scenes. I was visiting the gallery, and I always thought, you know what, one day I'll get back here. And as life goes, sometimes it takes longer to return to certain places. I found a really good street scene, beautiful old building, kind of a classic post office looking building. The lights come out at the right time. Ultimately, I forgot my backing board. I don't have a good seat, so I'm going to have to sort of work through that, but I think I can manage. But it is the type of scene that has a lot of detail, so I'm going to have to try and simplify and see how I go. Always good to start off slow, especially with pencil on paper, because there's not really too much chance to really remove those marks if we go in too hard too soon. So that's why I start off slow, keep measuring, triple checking, double checking, keep going back over things just to make sure placement of shape, because it is mostly about perspective and getting those proportions right. That is the key to success, I find, with definitely drawing, because we don't have that chance to get something wrong and be able to use colour or brush marks or even sometimes contrast to sort of get us out of trouble. So we're really hell-bent with shape. So at this stage, I was just working from top to bottom. Ultimately, the top of the town hall was so interesting, I was almost tempted just to make it about that. As you can see, I've got the drawing book sort of balanced on my leg there. Years ago, when I used to draw sort of almost 3, 4, 5 times a week, I'd have just a little sort of deck chair, the little sort of aluminium and plasticky sort of ones, super light, and I'd have a backing board. And I did have one in the car, but I totally forgot to grab it. So you'll see my left hand sort of struggle to hang on, and because it wasn't so much just holding the weight. The other concern is with it being a really full, heavy sketchbook, it buckles. So I had that worry, and then I was having trouble sort of keeping lines straight and being able to measure and see if I'm getting the perspective right. So a little bit of a challenge there, but for future, I'll definitely get back to make sure I've got that backing board. So we're just working away at some of those big shapes, but as soon as I get those big shapes in place and I know where the light's coming from and the shadows casting to, that's when I'll start to I really like to get some of those shadows in. It starts to sort of put that little bit of muscle onto what really was just some bones there, just some lines, almost like the old classic skeleton shape. Probably the one difficult part was that the light did leave me fairly early. That's where the other trick is, to try and work fairly quickly. I think I really only had about 45 minutes in total, or that's what the time I gave myself to see what I can get. But I think the underlying factor with drawing is to make sure that we're initially using this as a tool, as a device, to just to sort of see on paper or see how the shapes represent in relationship. And because this type of building does have a lot of detail, it's so easy to get lost in that. That's where I find keeping to the big shapes as long as possible, almost working at a distance if you can, in your mind anyway. And it's more sort of in that last 15%, maybe 20% of the drawing, that's when you start to come in and put some of the windows in. I think the clock, it started at about 20 past 4 in the afternoon. It's a daylight saving time as well. So that sort of gave us more light in the day, but this big bank of cloud came up and like a big backdrop, just cut the light out. I do love using the fingers to smear the graphite, so that'll build up a little bit of a darker value in behind the tower. And that's probably the tricky part with drawing, where if I was doing an oil, I kept thinking to myself, you know what, I'll just put the sky in. Even if when I started there was more blue sky there, not so much wanting to use the colour, but the value up against the sunlit tower part and the sunlit part, the sky was going to help me. And I kept feeling that the tower was just looking a little flat. So that's why later on I started smearing that the graphite, just to give myself that little bit more depth to work with. So we're just working down onto that right hand side. And I don't mind actually putting some cars in, figures, and I think that's what I'll definitely do with the oil. I'll be putting the cars in, definitely. In this type of scene, even when I'm really working really well, really fast, and I'm at the peak of my powers, you still really need an hour and a half minimum, where I had about half that time, or I gave myself half that time. So, some trips, you just hit the ground running, and you just want to get something under your belt, some work done. And I think some of the big windows were just looking a little sort of underdeveloped, and because actually windows and doorways, they're almost a bit of a work of art in themselves, the way they decorate the shape. But that kneadable rubber, that's a real key to my approach with drawing, because every now and then I don't mind if I sort of smudge across the paper and darken that value, because it comes off so nicely with the kneadable rubber. And thankfully I've got a fairly new kneadable rubber. It was so pliable. When they get old, they get really stiff, and you need a really firm grip to be able to even get a handle on it. Started to get into a little bit of trouble with this little shape here. It was meant to be a car there, but my left hand was about now starting to really cramp up. So even for a few hours after the drawing, it was really cramped up. So that's it in a nutshell. Keep with those big shapes, think light and dark. Try not to overwork it. Keep it simple. Well, the light did sort of beat me. I was hoping it was going to hang in there for a bit longer. And typically with painting or drawing, you want good light at the start and definitely good light at the ending, just so you can sort of measure up all the values. But it was a great subject. I think I'll do an oil of it at some other stage, which I'll really sort of sink my teeth into, I think most likely back in the studio. So I hope you enjoyed it. All the best. Bye for now.